make a tremendous impact on the state or local level. An example of this principle in action, North Carolina multimillionaire Art Pope. Pope has reportedly spent between $2 and $2.5 million on state legislature races in North Carolina every other year. That's a lot of money, but of course it's not much compared to what it would cost to dominate, to influence races on the national level. Here's an example of how the Pope campaigns worked. Pope paid millions of dollars, a tremendous amount in a poor rural district, attacking the Democratic political reform candidate Chris Hegarty. The ads described him as having voted to raise taxes over $1 billion. But Hegarty had never served in any legislature and therefore had never voted for or against anything. But think about how poor the name recognition of state legislators is. Can you remember all of the people you voted for in the state legislature? Do you know who all of your state legislature representatives are? Most people don't. In a situation like that, a few $100,000 of negative advertising can make a world of difference. In 2012, Pope poured contributions into Pat McCrory's gubernatorial campaign. When McCrory won election, he appointed Pope as his budget director. Pope, with McCrory's blessing, slashed the state's education funding. In 2014, of the 22 races that Pope targeted putting money into, his candidates, all of whom were quite conservative Republicans, won 18, putting both houses of North Carolina under Republican control for the first time in 150 years. This new legislature passed a number of laws on various conservative causes. The state also struck down minimum wage laws in a number of North Carolina cities. Coincidentally, Pope owns a chain of discount stores which rely on cheap labor. Currently, Roy Cooper, a Democrat, defeated Pope's picked candidate, McCrory, in the governor's election by about 7,000 votes. However, McCrory claims to have found between 300 and 400 ballots that were illegitimate, for which reason there is some talk by the North Carolina legislature of rejecting the result of the election and making the decision for McCrory themselves. How have states tried to deal with the issue of campaign finance? In Massachusetts, a citizen initiative called the Clean Elections Law passed by a very wide margin, and it gave the option of candidates receiving full public financing for their campaigns. The legislature couldn't prevent citizens from voting for this initiative, but they refused to fund it, so it never took effect. Arizona passed an act designed to prevent wealthy candidates from overwhelming their opponent by spending their own money. The Supreme Court struck it down. The court said that, in effect, the free speech of a wealthy candidate was interfered with because that candidate would be punished if he or she spent money on their own candidacy. The majority decision declared that it's not legitimate for the government to try and level the electoral playing field. Let's think about what a radical statement that is. The court didn't say, of course it's okay to try and equalize the playing field or to try and make it a fair competition, but this isn't the way. The court said it's not legitimate to try and equalize the electoral playing field. It's not even a legitimate goal. In the early years of the 20th century, Montana politics was dominated by copper barons rich men made rich by copper mining, and after a series of scandals, passed the Corrupt Practices Act, which completely prohibited Montana corporations from contributing money to political campaigns or influencing Montana elections in any way. The law was upheld by the state Supreme Court, but it was struck down by the U.S. Supreme Court. In New York City, candidates who agree to participate in the spending program agree to a spending limit, and they get a 6-to-1 match of small contributions. There are still states with campaign finance laws on the books, assuming that the next Supreme Court justice or justices are appointed by President Trump. It'll be an interesting early test of Trump's commitment to changing the role of money in politics, to see whether he appoints a judge who will overturn Citizens United.
It's the dollar bill that kills y'all. It's the dollar bill, y'all. It's the dollar bills. It's the dollar bill that kills y'all. Cash ruin everything around me. Cash ruin everything around me. Cash ruin everything.